Howdy guys, welcome back. Alright, so in this video we are going to actually concentrate on the ropes. This will take us probably a couple of videos here, but if we take a look at our reference over here, so we've got this rope object, and I actually do want to do the high-res model for the rope inside of Houdini. I don't want to have to try to get this pattern with textures or hand model it myself. We can do all that procedurally inside of Houdini, and it's a lot faster, and it allows us to play around with a lot of different looks. So let's first take care of the actual low-res mesh first, so the low-res rope. So what I want to do, I'm going to go into my front view here, and you can see actually here, I just want to point this out, you can see how the noise is just subtly really perturbing the surface, and that just makes it look much more believable instead of everything being perfectly horizontal or vertical. And even all the randomized bevel is really helping that too. So what I'm going to do is I am going to hit W on the keyboard, and that's going to put me into wireframe mode. And I'm going to go and draw a curve. So inside of this same geometry node, inside of this ammo crate node, I'm going to draw a curve. Okay. And what I want to do is just focus on this for now. So I'm going to come back over here into the scene view here and just hit enter on the keyboard, and that puts me into this drawing mode. And you'll notice that the cursor changes, and we also have instructions down here on the bottom that tells us how we can further manipulate the curve. So all I want to do is just draw out something that's kind of like the shape of that rope. All right, and I'm adding these little points right here just because I want a little bit of bend as it's inserting itself into the these wood supports here on the side. So if you ever want to go in and add some more points, just hold down shift and click on the actual curve. Let's actually highlight this here. There we go. And you'll see that it adds another point right there. So again, that's shift and click. There we go. And we can then further refine this. Now I don't need to do a ton of refinement, but what I do want to do is go through and just kind of munge this up a little bit. And I don't want to do that at this level. What I want to do is process this a little bit so I get a nice smooth curve, right? I don't want to go through and spend a lot of time trying to make this thing look perfect, because what we can do is we can do a resample node, and this is going to add more resolution to it. So let's turn on our point display here. All right, and you can see that it rounds it out, but it's still pretty rough. One thing that I like to do is to set this, in this particular case for this rope, I like to set this to subdivision curves, and it smooths it out even further for me. And I'm also going to set this to maximum segments because I want to have control over that curve as well. So with that, what I can do is select the curve node again and then hit enter with my cursor over the scene view here. And I'm just going to go and just kind of move these around a little bit, make it feel a little more natural, because if we look again at our reference, these guys are kind of folded over, you know, they're all floppy and stuff like that. So I'm going to make them kind of floppy. All right. So let's put in the flop like so. That's pretty good. I mean, you don't need to go super crazy with all of this stuff, but we can be a little artsy about it. Alrighty. So that's pretty good. That's about all the flop I'm going to put into this one. Alrighty, so now what I can do is turn this into our low-res version of the rope. Okay, and to do that, I need a circle. All right, and you'll notice I'm not positioning this yet. We'll take care of that later. All right, so I'm going to create a circle, and I just need a sweep for this particular effect to be achieved. All right, and our circle is obviously way too big, and I also want to set this to polygons, and we're going to make it around something like 6 divisions, and let's just reduce this uniform scale all the way down. Cool. So that's looking pretty good. And then all we need to do is come back into the sweep node here and go to the output and set that to skin with auto closure, turn off wireframe. And one thing that we can do is when we get these kind of harsh angles in our curve here, we can actually go to the sweep and turn on the angle fix, and it actually will scale out the profile so that it tries to maintain the volume all the way around the curve so it doesn't pinch as it gets into the corners there. And again, you can always go and add more segments to this as well, and that will further refine it. So now that I mention it, one thing that we can do too, and it's very important for games, especially, is to reduce the amount of geometry that we have, but still retain the overall look. So currently we have quite a bit of geometry in this particular piece of geometry here, or subdivisions in this piece of geometry. What we can do is we can actually use a refine node. So I'm going to drop down a refine node like so. And what I want to do, what this does, you'll notice that there's this little blue dot here, and that is telling the user, myself, or if you or whoever's using this, right, is where the effect is going to be applied. So if I were to turn on the second U, the effect of this refine node will be applied within those 2 points. So in this case, I want the whole curve to be affected. And what I'm going to do is go to the unrefined tab and then just increase this tolerance, or decrease the tolerance a little bit. And you'll notice that we're getting points just where we need the resolution. So we're saving a lot of geometry or polygon count by doing that refine nodes. And you can adjust it even further if you need more or less. There we go. So it's just another handy dandy little tool to use in your modeling pipeline, especially when you're doing stuff for games and you need a low res mesh, a high res mesh, all those kinds of things. All right. So you notice now that we finished that, our geometry is actually reversed, so we can easily take care of that with the reverse node. Very cool. All done. And then let's just drop down a normal node and just make it completely smooth. That's doing pretty good. So we can set this to 90. Perfect. So now if I were to turn off all of my displays, I have a rope, or at least the low-res version of the rope. Now, what I want to do is actually show you guys how to produce the UVs for this, because I don't know about you, but I've been making games for a long time, and I'm tired of having to lay out UVs for these types of tubes. This technique that I'm about to show you works really well for ropes, cables, pipes, just about anything that's a tube and has an open end at the end. So what I'm going to do first is drop down a group node. All right. And I'm going to call this group the UV point. All right. And again, because I'm using the $OS, it's picking up this name as the group name, right? So let's show our geometry spreadsheet again. And if we go to our, let me actually switch this to points. There we go. So now we've got no points in our group point. That's because we need to actually assign it. And what I want to do, if I were to frame this here and take a look, I just want to set the first, or point 0, as our seam point. Okay? And that'll just make it easy. You can go and change it to whatever, right? All you would do is you take the current divisions and subtract 1 from it. And that will allow you to shift whichever point you want to be as the seam. All right. So now what's happened is it's grouping that one particular point. So then when we sweep it, let's go take a look at the sweep now. Turn off our point display. There we go. So now when we sweep it and we take a look at our grouping, you can see that we've got this line of points going along the rope. So at that point, what we can do is we can do a group promote. All right. And I want to take that UV point and I'm going to promote it to an edge. All right. Let's take a look. Oh, I did that in the wrong spot. Sorry, guys. I need to do that after the sweep. There we go. All right. So when we do that, you can see all those points are converted over to an edge. Now we're getting some extra edges that we don't need. I just want this one long line as the seam. So I can actually hit this include only elements entirely contained in original group. And that gives us the seam. So the last thing I have to do is just say, or give this group a name, and that's going to be called UV seam. And from there, what we can do is just drop down the UV flatten node. All right, let's switch over to our UV view. And inside of the flattening constraints, I want to say UV seam. And now this works because it also takes into account the edges that don't have any sort of connection to any other piece of geometry. All right, so that did a pretty good job right there. And then what we can do is drop down a UV layout. So UV layout. And I'm going to make sure that this axis align is set and the correct area proportions is set, turned on. And if we were to look at that, it laid it out pretty well. Now you can go in and further refine this, but as a starting point, you didn't have to go and do that at all, right? By hand. So now we've got our rope all laid out for us. If I were to drop down a UV quick shade, like so, we get pretty good UVs all laid out for us, and we didn't have to do anything by hand. So like I said, after the fact, when you're done with the entire model here, you can go in and tweak it if you need it perfectly square. Then you can go and do that, and you can do that with the UV flatten node as well by using the, I believe it is the layout constraints. There are axis aligned vertex groups. It really works. I haven't found a great way to proceduralize that just yet, though I'm gonna figure it out, I swear. But that is a quick way to lay out your UVs for tubes and stuff. Then you can edit it after the fact. All right, so now we have our rope. And the cool part about all this is now we just have a very small set of points that we can move, and we're actually able to just constantly make updates to this. And the UVs are constantly being generated for us. All the smoothings generated for us. It's perfect, right? We're even getting the benefits of using that refine node in here. So really cool stuff. All right, so I think with that, I'm going to close out this particular video. In the next video, we're going to make the high-res version of this rope, and we're going to actually make the individual fibers and stuff like that that make up this particular rope piece. All right, so let's get to it.